Today, I want our conversation to really be about what it will take to alleviate the unemployment pressure that is there in the country right now. What it will take to get a lot of people who are entrepreneur minded into businesses, starting their own businesses, instead of waiting in vain for jobs that are supposed to be created but that are not going to be created. Because I'm one of those people that believe we have it in us, the ability to take advantage of anything, really just turn water to wine. Because at that point in time, people want wine. And the reason I'm using the water to wine analogy, which is a biblical one, is because I've always been one of those people that argue that if you go to a shopping mall and you want a service and you can't find that service, you need to start assuming that there are 100 people like you who actually went looking for that service but didn't find that service, which should mean be the person who's going to provide that service. Because you can't really be the only person that wanted that service but couldn't find it. And if we move into a point whereby our thinking is about that, about I went out looking for something else, I didn't find it, now it's time for me to do it, we might be surprised about how many opportunities we might create, employment opportunities, job opportunities, entrepreneur opportunities. I remember a conversation I had some time ago, I think it was maybe 21 years ago, with one of those people you grew up with who now worked in the cities, stayed in the cities, and has convinced himself that the city was going to be a destination for him, to the point that whenever he was around during the festive season, he'll find fault with everything else. He'll find fault with the fact that around 7, people dispersed. We went home to watch soapies, watch Generation at the time. He just found fault with it. He said, look, why are we dispersing at around 7, 7:30? And he'll say, but what is left to do? And he always said, I know if I was in Joburg, 7 o'clock is when we actually start making calls to each other to say, well, we're grooving today. It's time when we actually take a bath in preparation for going to groove, to go to a club and all those things. And he said, no, what's boring about this place is that after 7, everything else is finished. There's nothing else you can do. And I said to him, but if you can't find a club here, why don't you open it up? Because it's you identifying a gap in the market. Why don't you be the one to open a club? Because there are more people like you who come from the cities, who are here, who feel that 7 o'clock is too early to go home, and who will love to go out at 9, to go clubbing, maybe go to one bar or go to a tavern, or you are spoto, but you'll want to go out. I said, look, this is probably a market for you. But he said, no, I'm going to go back to Joburg before even the 31st, because I know if I was there, I'll have like 20, 30, 40 places that I can go to. Of which there was nothing wrong with that. I think 21 years ago, unemployment was not much of a problem. Still at Mandela, at the time, he was still going up and down. He was still causing trouble to his deputy, Thabo Mbeki. But over time, as years and years dragged on, and the situation of employment started becoming worse, basically because of technology. Because some of the jobs that people used to do are now being done by technology. Assembling cars, there are now robots that do that. In other areas, tech has taken over. Where we used to have security guards, now you can have security cameras and have 3 people in a control room just monitoring a huge area where you will have deployed a lot of security guards. But also the security guard thing, we need to understand one thing which is quite important. Right now, when you go to every government office, the first people you meet are security guards sitting at the desk, and you register your name there, which I think is unconstitutional, because the POPIA, Promotion of Prevention of Information Act. POPIA, Promotion of Protection of... Yeah, I just forget what POPIA means. I know what PAIA, because as a media person, I know that the Promotion of Access to Information Act. But POPIA really says I don't need to give my personal details when I don't know what they're going to be used for, or if I'm not comfortable with the reason that they're going to be used for. But when you go to government offices, you still got security guards. And as a result, there's a proliferation. Everybody else says, right now I've got matric. What I want to do is I just want to go and do grade E and then get my SIRA and then become a security guard. And I think it's lowering the bar, because you're just saying you want to become an employee. But beyond that, people don't see themselves as owning those security companies, providing private security. Because I don't think this is constitutional. This thing of government offices, before 1994, that never happened. You just walk into Home Affairs, walked into social development. We just walked into offices, into hospitals. There was never a desk whereby security people, you need to go through security to go inside. I don't know what it is that the current government is afraid of, that the apartheid government, which had every reason to be afraid of limpet mines and other explosives, were not afraid of. They will allow us. We just walk into Home Affairs. We just walk into Foreign Affairs at the time. If you wanted to do something there, you walked into buildings. There was no this thing. So, but now, the reason I'm raising this is because you hear people have this tendency that when they're thinking entrepreneurship, they're thinking entrepreneurship into an area where they know people are making money. People will say, I want to register a security company, which is quite good. But if in your skill set, you don't have security in your skill set, not in your qualification, if you're not an innovative person, because you need to innovate solutions for security. Security is not just about putting a sentry. It should also be about how do you secure a house, how do you secure a room, how do you secure a perimeter. Come up with ideas beyond cameras. Drones now, we've moved into AI, into other technologies. You need to be able who's going to be innovative, other than just to be the guy who's going to register a security company, get the SIRA, and look for the tender. So the problem that is confronting the country right now, overemployment, I always say this, and sometimes I'm being accused of being simplistic. I'll say to somebody else, why don't you sell Magwinya? And they'll say to me, why don't you sell Magwinya? I say, but I can't sell Magwinya because I'm doing other things. But if I wasn't doing these things, I'll definitely sell Magwinya. I'll definitely sell Acham. And then I'll say to young men, I'll say, why don't you go by the river and get mafetlo? Kilefetlo. No, I'm not going to try and find an English word for it, because abafetli, porridge, sadza, upalish, they don't do that. So why don't you go by the river, because they grow on the trees, just cut them down and send them nicely and sell them at the pension pay point. And say, yeah, but why don't you do it? I said, but I'm doing other things. If I wasn't doing what I'm doing right now, I'll actually be doing that, So here's the thing about this issue of unemployment, which is a very serious issue. I think every person must just be able to sit down and identify what is their skill set. What is it that you are able to do? What is it? Where lies your skills? And when I talk about skills, I'm not talking much about what you have studied, but what you can do. You might be a fitness freak. I told this other boy the other time I met at the gym, and he said he wanted to be a security guard, and I told him, no, I don't think you need to be a security guard. He said, but I'm unemployed. I said, yes, you're unemployed, but you don't need to be a security guard, because I come here at gym all the time. I find you working out, and I can see there is progress on your part, and you are young, you're in your early 20s. I said to him, look, I think you should just think around setting up a gym, because there are a lot of people who've got health issues. A gym where you might even collaborate with other people who are going to provide other services beyond just working the muscles, but also aerobics, massage, probably. I said, as a young person, take advantage of the opportunities that are there. NYDA, some of these funders that are there, corporate sometimes opens opportunities. Dunlop Business in a Box for young people. Coca-Cola in a Box for young people. I said, look, No, man, you are a fitness freak. I think you should just be a fitness trainer. Own a gym. Go out there. I'll try, not that I can, I'll try to help you to get the kind of funding that speaks to your skill set, but do identify the skill set. And once you know what you can do, that can be what you create the jobs on. That you become self-employed, you become an entrepreneur. Because there's a tendency whereby if people who are driving the most expensive cars are said to be in security, we all want to open security companies. Or they are said to be supplying services, tipper services to a construction of a hospital, all want to supply tippers. Or next time, they're all said to be engineers, all want to be engineers, because we measure success by the size of a car, how big the engine is. I'm not saying there's something wrong. It's fine. We need to measure things using different things. But my point, because I'm not an entrepreneur, so I can't really be giving people masterclass. I don't like masterclasses. But what I can say is that if you go and look for a service, you're looking for Archer, you can't find Archer. Maybe it's a time for you to go buy a packet of Archer, break it down into small sachets and sell it. Sell Archer. You go out, you're looking for a toothbrush there by the shop by your street. You can't find a toothbrush. Maybe it's time you bought a bulk of toothbrushes and sold toothbrushes. You go there, you're looking for nickel because your button fell off. You want a nickel too, and you can't find it. Maybe it's time you went and bought cotton and needle, thread, and do it. You want to go to hospital late in the evening and there are no taxis. You don't have a car, there are no taxis. Maybe it's time you thought about the business in line with a private ambulance of some sort. Let's call it the private ambulance, whereby the community knows that if a child or somebody wants to go to hospital, this is the person that you can call to driver. So you provide the service at a fee, not this thing of saying 500 rand because people are desperate. Provide a service at a reasonable fee that's going to sustain you, because your car only drives in the evening after all, and people don't get ill all the time. So petrol consumption is not going to be hitting you so much. But my point is that, look, this thing of waiting for employment to come, blaming political parties, blaming government, it's not going to work, because as human beings, 2 feet, 2 hands, 2 eyes, we all have something that you can do. Some people can farm, some people can water, some people can harvest. We just need to have that unity of purpose. Because once we are able to have unity of purpose, once we are able to do that, it's going to alleviate a lot of the problems. Because the problem that we are facing now is more on dependence, on waiting for the next person to do something for us, when we actually have the ability to do that. We are able to see. The Bible says, let he who has eyes see, let he who has ears hear. So this is not a master class. I don't do master classes, but I'm thinking, if you go and look for a service and you can't find it, you are looking for a cement, you can't find it, maybe it's time you started selling cement. You are looking for a brick, you can't find it, maybe it's time you started selling bricks. You're looking for tile on a ground, you are doing tiles, and you need to go to pay 20 to go get it because it's far and it becomes very expensive for you. Maybe it's time you bought tile on the ground and you started selling it. And that's how entrepreneurship is going to manifest itself, other than waiting. So let's be smarter, let's become better people. SAP, a South African perspective. Subscribe and like, and let's make the circle bigger.